Hi everyone, this is the second part of the lecture on trophic adaptations. Herbivory, such as browsing of this deer, can affect growth form of plants by terminating shoot growth and initiating branching. So it's much like what happens when you bonsai plants. Debarking may also lead to plant mortalities. Herbivory affects the survival, productivity, and growth of individual plant species, and naturally, plants have evolved an enormous array of mechanical and chemical defenses against herbivory. These include physical defenses, such as spines or thorns, and the hard shells of nuts. Grasses also contain high levels of silica, which are deposited in the leaves. Silica is harder than tooth enamel, so this increases the abrasiveness of the leaves and deter feeding of graminivores. In this study, silica reduced the growth rates of female juvenile and adult voles due to decreased nitrogen absorption. Fine hair-like projections on leaves, like trichomes, are also physical defenses. This reminds me of okra, which most of you might not like to eat. Am I right? Chemical defenses includes tannins, which are found in the leaf, bud, seed, root, and stem tissues, and they act by inhibiting the absorption of proteins. So this leads to malnourishment and eventually death. It also includes alkaloids, which are toxic or physiologically active. It is released when plant is damaged, and alkaloids have a wide range of physiological effects on herbivorous mammals. Now, these plant adaptations force mammalian herbivores to consume a variety of plant foods at any one time, treat new foods with caution, ingest small amounts on first encounter, and sample food continuously. From experience also, grazers and browsers know which plants are poisonous through odor. Adaptations of herbivores include the long snout, the presence of the diastema, absence of the canines, and the presence of cheeks. Constant chewing also of plant material will need high-crowned teeth, or the hypsodont teeth, as well as the lophodont teeth that we already discussed in the previous lecture. And selenodont teeth, which are found in ruminants or in even-toed ungulates. So the types of teeth that are found in herbivores are types of teeth that, aside from being thicker or high-crowned, provide additional ridges or grinding surfaces that will allow the mechanical breakdown of plant material. Now let's take a look at the mammalian alimentary canal, which extends from the esophagus to the anus. This shows you a simple stomach lined by folds internally termed rugae, which function to increase the surface area for digestion and absorption. There are differences between carnivores and herbivores. The carnivore stomach represents 60 to 70% of total capacity of the digestive system. it secretes hydrochloric acid. It keeps the gastric pH down to approximately 1 to 2, even with food present. And the small intestines are short, approximately 3 to 5 or 6 times their body length. For the specialized carnivores, such as the sangivorous vampire bat, the stomach lining rapidly absorbs blood plasma. Blood is almost 60% water. Rodents exhibit a wide range of dietary habits, with herbivory having evolved multiple times independently. So you see here two types of stomachs: the unilocular stomach above and the bilocular stomach below. The unilocular stomach represents a single chamber. So A is the incisura angularis, E cornified epithelium, and F the glandular epithelium. Increased gastric cornification might be an adaptation to harsh, abrasive foodstuffs or an adaptation to an herbivorous diet by forming a fermentation chamber in which symbiotic organisms may degrade complex polysaccharides. The bilocular condition, as seen below, has a deep incisura angularis that produces sacculation. The functional significance of this was apparently to allow growth of symbiotic microbes in the proximal chamber. In the study of Cole et al. 2013, they reported that this anatomy aids in the maintenance of differential pH between the chambers. Ruminants, such as cattle, goats, sheep, giraffes, etc., are so called because they regurgitate semi-digested mass or cud and then they chew it again, rechewing the cud to further break down plant matter and to stimulate digestion. So 60 to 75% of the ingesta are fermented by the microbes before they are exposed to gastric juices. Ruminant stomachs have 4 compartments: the rumen, reticulum, omasum, and abomasum. Their esophagus has no sphincter valve and opens into the reticulum and rumen. When ruminants feed, they swallow much of their food without chewing it sufficiently. And the food initially collects in the rumen, which functions as a large fermentation vat. This produces methane. Rumen microbes ferment, feed, and produce volatile fatty acids, which is the cow's main energy source. Rumen microbes also produce B vitamins, vitamin K, and amino acids. The esophagus functions bidirectionally in ruminants, allowing them to regurgitate their cud for further chewing. The process of rumination or chewing the cud is where forage and other food are forced back to the mouth for further chewing and mixing with saliva. This cud is then swallowed again and passed into the reticulum. Then the solid portion slowly moves into the rumen for fermentation, while most of the liquid portion rapidly moves from the reticular rumen into the omasum. The omasum absorbs volatile fatty acids, ammonia, and water. The omasum moves smaller food particles into the abomasum, where enzymatic and acidic hydrolysis occurs. So which part of the ruminant stomach is the true stomach? For herbivores, ruminants may be considered as foregut fermenters. while in here, the horse with a uncompartmentalized stomach or a simple stomach would have a cecum instead. So they are called as hindgut fermenters. So you see here A is foregut fermentation, and then B is illustrates hindgut fermentation. So you see there that fermentation in A occurs in the rumen, while in the hindgut fermenters, fermentation occurs in the cecum. Now, microbial digestion centered in the intestine allows for extensive elongation of the intestine, and there is a large ceca which extends the volume available for fermentation. And this is found, for example, in the rabbits, pigs, horses, and koalas. Now, the advantage of foregut fermentation is that it is especially efficient at extracting most nutrients, even from food that is of poor quality. So some of the advantages are that food is digested in the anterior region, food can be rechewed, and then it turns much of the nitrogen, which would supposedly be a waste product, into a resource, and it also destroys potential toxins. Now, for hindgut fermentation, the advantage would be that soluble nutrients such as carbohydrates, glucose, and proteins can be safely absorbed before fermentation begins. And also, it is faster compared to foregut fermentation. Small herbivores must digest food rapidly, and thus most are hindgut fermenters. So the examples here are the guinea pig, hamster, rabbit, koala, and rock hyrax. And you see there the presence of a cecum where fermentation occurs. But there are also large herbivores that are hindgut fermenters, and they have proportionately more volume in which to process food. Hindgut fermenters, as you can see here, generally have a cecum and large intestine that are much larger and more complex than those of foregut fermenters. The ability to process food more rapidly than foregut fermenters give them an advantage at very large body size. The large hindgut fermenters are bulk feeders. They ingest large quantities of low-nutrient food, which they process more rapidly than would be possible for a similarly sized foregut fermenter. For carnivores, the large intestine or the colon is simple and very short. It approximately has the same diameter as the small intestine. It is short and non-pouched, and the muscle is distributed throughout the wall, giving the colon a smooth cylindrical appearance. Bacterial population may be present, but the activities are essentially putrefactive. For herbivores, you have seen that the colon is a highly specialized organ. Water and electrolyte absorption also takes place here, as well as vitamin production and absorption, and/or fermentation of fibrous plant materials. It is usually wider and longer than the small intestine. This shows a comparison of the alimentary canal of a carnivore and herbivore, and you can see there that the carnivore also has a cecum. However, it is small in comparison to that of the herbivore, wherein the cecum is large and serves as the primary fermentation site. There are mammals that exhibit coprophagy or refection. Coprophagy is the eating of feces, and you might have observed this in dogs in your neighborhood and maybe even with your own dog. And I know it's disgusting, but this may be related to vitamin deficiency or some underlying medical condition. However, this is normal for other mammals such as rabbit, hares, many rodents, and even gorillas. The feces eaten are usually those that come only from the cecum. The cecum is emptied in the early morning, and only these droppings are consumed. Liquids and fine particles are diverted into the cecum for extended fermentation. Don't be surprised, but in humans, there is a so-called fecal microbiota transplant, also known as stool transplant. And it is the process of transferring fecal bacteria and other microbes from a healthy individual into another individual. So that's it for now. You may now proceed with your learning activity. Have a nice week ahead.